Ah, the great line of historical fashion YouTube channels. Each of them are known for their talent, their knowledge, and their beautiful aesthetic. And then there's me. Not only do I have no clue what I'm doing, but I also attempted one of the most difficult and most labor-intensive dress styles in doll size. So, if you're looking for expertise and advice from someone who isn't a certifiable hot mess, then you need to look somewhere else. Still watching? Okay. In my previous video, I showed most of the steps of how to make a robe à la Française, but I didn't have enough time, or attention span, to explain the gown in detail. So I promised a more in-depth video as a follow-up. And now we're here. If you're interested in the sewing and construction details, then keep watching. If not, then keep watching anyway. I mean, you've already made it this far in the video. What's another few minutes? Come on, it'll make me happy. I'm not going to go into the making of the other pieces because I was able to get enough information into the previous video about them. So this will mostly focus on the few things I had to leave out due to time. Again, using the American Duchess Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking book, I made a pattern using my doll's measurements. I also followed their directions, which became very confusing when I needed to cut a line up the back piece and top stitch around the edge, because I then needed to attach straps to either side and tie them in the center in loose bows. After finishing the gown, I'm still not sure why this step is there, but I did it anyway. Then I attached the back piece to the front pieces and put it on my doll to decide where the seams would land for the best fit. Here, I attached my front lining fabric to my taffeta fashion fabric along the front seam. Then I turned it right side out. The book suggests folding both edges in and stitching them together by hand, but in this instance, I felt like I could take a shortcut. This is only the bottom part of the fashion fabric, by the way. The shoulder part comes later. Sack gowns, or robe à la Française, are known for having beautiful floor-length capes. Unfortunately for me, that means doing a variety of small knife pleats and box pleats to accomplish this look. So I cut a gift card into my needed pleat depths so that the pleats could be properly spaced out and fairly consistent with each other. One for the back part of the knife pleat and one for the front. Then I ironed both of them to make a crisp fold. You might notice me using a piece of wood after I use the iron. Well, this is my makeshift clapper. The clapper absorbs any leftover moisture in the fabric to ensure that the fibers stay locked in place. Now, before anyone else mentions that I should have used a pleat board, keep in mind that these pleats change size and direction almost constantly. A pleat board wouldn't have worked. This method wasn't great either, but after about 50 attempts, I finally got it. Next, to attach it to the lining, I marked where the opening in the back of my lining ended and stitched down each of the pleats to that mark, while the lining was behind it, right sides facing out. Then I used an invisible stitch to attach the back opening to the inverted box pleat in the back of the cape. This helps secure the dress around the waist. Then I fit the dress on the doll again to determine where the seam should be on the sides. This is where I did follow the directions and folded one side over the other, then folded that top side under itself and then to the gown. I measured and cut panels for the front of the gown. Then line up the edge of the cape fabric with the edge of the front panel and sew up the side, but not all the way because
it has pockets.
Then fold over and hem the pocket opening on both sides. Then fold it over and top stitch down the front panels to finish them off. So we now have a bodice back and a bodice front, but we need a part of the bodice that covers the shoulders. I cut out my fashion fabric based on the pattern I made in the beginning. Then fitted on my doll to figure out the proper seams and stitched the back and shoulder piece together. Then in the same way that I did the side seam, I attached the shoulder piece to the bodice front top. Now, normally, these gown pieces would close in the front with pins pushed into the stomacher. However, I couldn't think of a good way of doing that in doll size, so I decided to use Velcro. Then I made some bias tape and bound the remaining edges around the neck. You wouldn't think that sleeves would be complex items in the garment, but apparently, the more lace and decoration you had in your sleeves really showed off how wealthy you were. I decided to make the inner ruffles out of my purple taffeta, in order to match the petticoat. Then I applied fray check to all of the raw edges. Now I can begin to assemble. I first lay the smaller ruffle pieces on top of the larger ruffle pieces. Then run 2 parallel basting stitches at the bottom. I then pull the 2 back threads and gather the pieces to match the circumference measurement of her bicep. Next, I cut thin strips of my red taffeta and sew 2 parallel basting stitches down the center. Then trim along the edge with my pinking shears. Then pull the back threads to turn the strips into ruffles. I attach the red ruffles to the purple sleeve ruffles, and then hem the bottom cuff of my upper sleeve, then attach the sleeve to the purple ruffles. Next, I fold the sleeve in half lengthwise and sew along that edge. Then hand stitched the sleeve to the bodice using a back stitch. The next step was to hem the bottom of the skirt, keeping the shape of the small train in mind as I did so. Since I included a Black Widow design on the stomacher, I felt like I needed to repeat that on the gown, especially since the really fancy Robe à la Française gowns tended to have very intricate embroidery included on them. On the bottom edge, I folded it over so it looked like it was part of the hem. Then top stitched around the bottom and front edge, but did a zigzag stitch along the rounded edge to prevent fraying. Then I made more ruffles for the front of the gown and around the neck. But I found this really awesome pre-gathered ribbon to also use as decoration on the front panels of the gown. Then top stitched all the pieces in place. In the book, they explain how to make 5-loop bows, and I made a collection of them out of the ribbon. However, I didn't film it because at this point in the project, I felt very pressed for time. So using fabric glue, I attached some to the stomacher and the sleeves. For her choker, I found some similar colored satin ribbon and gathered it just as I did with the ruffles. Then looped on one of these precious rose charms and attached cord to the back to tie it in place. First is her chemise. This goes over her head and tightens loosely with a pull string around the collar. Then her stays. These wrap around the front and lace up the back with cording. Because of her squishy breasts, I was able to get them cinched in pretty tight. Next, her panniers. Each set of boning have ribbons tied to the ends so that they tie together and keep that U shape on the hip. Then there are ties on the top and bottom of each side that keep each pannier attached to each other and on the body. Next, the petticoat goes over the head and the back straps wrap around the front and tie. Then the front straps go over that bow and tie in the back. Then the gown is put on like an extremely large coat and secures on the front to the stomacher. Then I tie on the choker. 2 things that I forgot to film was where I made lace flounces for the sleeves and attached lace around the neck. If you haven't already, please check out my original charité video, where I describe the other steps in making her and the rest of her attire. And if you're new here and you liked this project, please subscribe and turn on notifications. I recently got a comment from a subscriber that said that they lost track of me for a few months because they didn't hit the bell, so make sure to do that. Also, every subscription, like, share, and comment helps my channel grow and keeps me excited to continue sharing my process with you all. Plus, I love commenting with you all afterward. It's the part of the process I look forward to the most. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you had a sweet time.